Ladies and gentlemen, if Ilhan Omar thinks we're just going to forget and move on from the fraud committed in Minnesota by the Somalis, just not think about the billions and billions of dollars they've stolen from American taxpayers to send to Mogadishu, Somalia to build real estate, then she is outrageously, unbelievably mistaken. We are never going to stop talking about this until consequences come. Whether that's her getting kicked out of Congress or to the final step, denaturalization and deportation. We will never stop. We will keep our foot on that gas. We're going to burn that fossil fuel. Vroom, baby. Ilhan attended one of these protests in Minneapolis against ICE and didn't even realize, but she stabbed Tim Walz in the back. Tim Walz will probably be blowing up her phone right now like, Ilhan, man, why'd you do that? I'm already under pressure. You placed me under more pressure. Also, Ilhan Omar is now under a new investigation, a massive new investigation. And I know you guys hate the word investigation because it typically means no action, but you have to start an investigation before you get to that final consequence, right? Also, members of Congress are pushing for subpoenas on her marriage, her husband and her, how she got all wealthy. So there's a lot going on with Ilhan. I want to show you guys this moment first because it really just tells you everything you need to know about this woman. She is mad that Trump is investigating fraud, saying he's wasting federal resources to investigate fraud. That's crazy.
I'm so exhausted in trying to ask what any of this, information has led to you finding any criminals that you have indicted that explains why you are wasting so much of our taxpayer resources and also terrorizing our communities in the amount of federal law enforcement agents that you have in the streets of our city and our state. There needs.
This lady thinks we pay taxes so Somalis can steal it. Like, she doesn't realize we pay taxes precisely so the federal government can conduct these sorts of investigations and prevent our money from being spent on fraud. Now, here is Ilhan at one of those protests, and I'm going to show you that moment that has Tim Walz really upset.
You all have refused to back down. You all have decided that this resistance is not one that can be intimidated. We are showing the nation that regardless of what the tyrant in the White House believes, we know that we are here to stay, and this is our country. We are going to make a life here, and we are going to stand up for our neighbors here in Minneapolis.
I can't listen to the whole thing. My brain's blowing up, man. I'm sorry. This woman, man, she's out here talking about first of all, why are all these white liberals always around supporting this bull nonsense, man? Like, what are you guys doing? White people, lock in. It's okay? I know black liberals are bad, but they don't really organize to protest ICE. They organize when they see an opportunity to loot stores and steal. But the white liberals just organize for the dumbest reason. But here's that big moment. Ilhan Omar, right, was in the middle of this protest. She was right there. And they started attacking Tim Walz in the middle of their speech.
Walz, grow some balls! Walz, grow some balls! El pueblo presente! El pueblo presente! He was taken by ICE just the other day! Somebody say shame! Shame! They murder when they ignore calls from people who really need them, and when they assist ICE. So to Jacob Fry, we say fuck you! You are not doing enough! Words are not enough! We need action now! Save
So she's participating in a rally of people insulting Tim Walz and even the Democrat governor, which is bizarre to think about. But ladies and gentlemen, here is some major news, a huge development. Journalist Chris Rufo broke on Fox News that investigators are looking into Ilhan Omar over her possible involvement with the Somali fraud scandal. She's only been seen in pictures with every single one of the fraudsters. Come on, guys, it's not possible anymore. It's, at this point, a confirmed fact. It's a constant of life. She is involved. She is of the fraud. But here's this breaking news.
I actually spent last week in Minneapolis, and there's two parallel stories. I mean, there is a panic within the Somali community. They've been found out for these massive fraud schemes, daycares, transportation, fake autism services, the whole 9 yards. But the political question is very important, and my sources in Minneapolis state government say that there are open inquiries into the potential involvement at the highest level of Minnesota politics. And so I think people will be taking a hard look not only at Governor Tim Walz, but also Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and State Attorney General Keith Ellison. We know that they have connections with convicted fraudsters. The question is, were they merely complicit in these schemes, or were they part of a broader conspiracy? We don't have strong evidence now, but I think people are starting to take a look.
Well, what we do know is that Ellison promised these guys he'd make the investigation go away, and then he got money as a donation. We know that whistleblowers alerted the Walz administration, and he didn't take any action. And we know a couple of these people, like Omar, got money from these convicted fraudsters as political donations. Are you saying that there could have been a conspiracy to move the welfare fraud money into their war chests?
It's certainly possible, and I think the person, and really I'm grateful for it, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, has all the tools at his disposal to actually investigate the money trail, to figure out how the money flowed between these fake nonprofits and Somali fraudsters and Minnesota politicians. And I'll tell you, the atmosphere in Minneapolis was electric. I mean, people had the sense of anticipation. Something big is coming. And look, I hope they get to the bottom of it, because we're talking about, some estimates upward of $9 billion stolen. These politicians seem to, at a minimum, have turned a blind eye to the fraud, or even directed people below them to take steps so that it wasn't uncovered. This scandal is not over, and I think it could end with significant action. And again, I think Secretary Bessent is the right man
for the job. Yes, that's huge, ladies and gentlemen. So, yeah, I don't think it's even a theory at this point that Ilhan was involved. I think it's a matter of fact. So here's what Nancy Mace is doing. She is calling for Ilhan Omar. She is a member of Congress, a colleague of Ilhan's, calling for her to be deported to Somalia. So I hope that materializes. But what I also thought was absolutely outrageous and unbelievable to hear was the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, the complete fraud and idiot and buffoon running the city, saying the fraud is rampant. The fraud is actually rampant.
Let me ask you about the leadership in your state. Dozens of people in Minnesota have been charged and convicted with stealing millions of dollars of taxpayer money for government programs. Do you think Governor Walz did enough to stop the fraud in your state? And do you support his decision not to run for re-election?
Well, look, Governor Walz is the reason that we've got paid family leave in Minnesota. He's the reason we've got free school lunches. Him and I, we've been through thick and thin.
But did he do enough to combat fraud, Mayor? Did he do enough to combat fraud?
Look, obviously, everybody could have done more to prevent fraud. And I think that's a fair point to make. Do more to prevent fraud. And you look what he's doing right now. He's setting up a whole bunch of infrastructure to do that. And by the way, look, the fraud's real. We've all got to acknowledge it. The fraud is very real. And by the way, when somebody commits fraud, and there are many that have done that, you investigate it, you charge, you prosecute, and yeah, you put the person in jail. as an individual. You put the person in jail as an individual. You do not hold an entire community, any community, accountable for the action.
Yeah, but if you put all the people who are involved in the fraud in jail, you're going to end up putting the whole community in jail because the entire community is involved. So here's what's interesting. Dustin Grage, who is a reporter on the ground in Minnesota, reports that Ben Davis, a representative in the Minnesota State House, tells him that articles of impeachment have officially been drafted. Accountability is coming. Now, at the very least, Tim Walz will get charged by the Minnesota House, but he will certainly get cleared of all charges by the state Senate because it's run by Democrats, but the state House is run by Republicans. So Tim Walz is in big trouble, reputationally speaking. An impeached governor, it doesn't matter if he's convicted, is still a very bad look for him. So that's huge, ladies and gentlemen. Like, that's accountability. Is that not what we've been calling for? We've been asking for these politicians on the right wing to do something. Like, punish somebody. I don't care if it's not going to go all the way through. I'd like to see some action. I don't just want to see endless investigations because we know enough. We know that Keith Ellison was in some quid quo pro, which is what they accuse Trump of, right? Projectocrats, they project upon you what they are. We know that Keith Ellison, the attorney general, was involved. He had communications with these fraudsters. Hey, if you support me, I'll make sure you don't end up in handcuffs, in jail, in prison. We know that Ilhan Omar has taken pictures with countless fraudsters. Does that not imply deep levels of guilt? And I don't really believe in guilt by association, but in this instance, like, I have to believe it because it's a community thing. So I think we're going to see some major, absolutely major development coming out of Minnesota in the next few weeks. I don't think this thing is going away. This is too much money on the line. We're talking about billions of dollars in stolen funds, stolen money. I combine money with funds. Muns. That's genius. We just invented a new word. I know you guys in the comments are going to be like, George, why don't you learn to pronounce everything first? You guys make fun of my pronunciations. You don't see me around here committing fraud. I'm not a Somali. What do you care for? See, you're going to say care. Like, look, my tongue is too masculine. Like, Chocolate Superman doesn't need pronunciation advice. If I want to say clearly, I will. Clearly, George. Okay, whatever. Now, you know what you guys are doing? Now you're saying, George, you're saying America wrong. Okay, what am I saying wrong? You're saying amendment. It's actually amendment. Okay, guys, come on. What are we doing? Anyways, justice and accountability is necessary. President Trump told the New York Times that he is open to denaturalization for Somalis. And I think that's great. I think the president should absolutely pursue that. There was also reports that he's dissatisfied with Pam Bondi, and I think he also publicly said something about not seeing enough from her. And I think it's the frustration that he sees all what we're seeing, but he's not seeing aggressive action to stop it. So I hope the president is pushing Pam Bondi to do something. You know, Tim Walz has been referred for criminal prosecution. Ilhan Omar should be next. They should find something on her. Look, I don't believe in fishing expeditions to get your political opponents, but I do believe in fishing expeditions to get Ilhan Omar, because there has to be consequence for what she is. She is a fraud. Everything about her is fraudulent. She married her brother to give him benefits, to green card status, and many other things. She has to be held accountable, one way or another. And if you don't do it, you're going to have anarcho justice, and we don't want to see that. We don't want to see vigilante justice. We want to see true justice from the state, which we pay for. Thank you all very much for watching. God bless and goodbye.